Welcome to the Briefing Note podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Elder, and joining me live from a campaign bus
Big bus.
in motion, somewhere in Ontario is Bonnie Crombie, the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. Hi, Bonnie.
That's right. Yes, I am. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me. Yes, we are
Yeah.
live in motion somewhere in the GTA, I think. Wonderful.
How's the
We
campaign?
were in Scarborough, but we're moving. We were
Oh,
all
are
over the
you?
map today. We had been, but now we're moving. So I'm not sure where we are. They don't
Yeah.
tell me.
Do you even
Uh,
really need to know?
I don't know what day it is, what time it is. Just keep moving.
Right? But
Time is getting short, right?
you probably know that election day is so close, 2 days
The
away.
sprint to the finish line right now. That's what I know. We've got
Yeah.
to cover as much ground as we can.
Yeah. So where are you spending the last couple of days of the campaign? If you do
Well,
know, outside of the bus.
yeah, it changes, but strategic ridings that we know we're doing really well and a little extra push and we can do better. So those
Yeah.
kind of ridings.
Yeah.
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 We've been in Ottawa, GTA, Scarborough, we may be going to, I don't even know what the schedule is tomorrow. Haven't seen it yet, but
Are you
lots
going
of
to be
media stops.
are you going to be spending time in your own riding in Mississauga?
Yes, not too much, but yes. My son's there full time. He's kind of my surrogate and he's doing a great job. I'll tell you at the doors, I've heard from people and they say any mother that can raise a son like that deserves a vote. So
Oh,
he's a great kid. Yeah, he's very impressive. Great kid. And he's there on my behalf. And I've got a very strong team who've worked with me before. And I have been. I'm going to try and get there again, maybe tomorrow, maybe to later tonight,
yeah.
support the troops.
Where are you going to be spending election day?
Well, we'll be, I've got to take my mom to vote. My mom is now 89. So she asked me to come and help her. Of course, I'm going to do that. And then I got to get a little bit of downtime and do a walkthrough at the election night site. And it'll be at the, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but a big convention center. And everyone will be invited to join us. I don't know. So we'll be there and it'll be great fun. Yeah,
That's
it'll be an
good.
opportunity to thank all the volunteers and celebrate together, especially the people who made this happen. Because it's a
Well,
big team.
I believe you. And as a former staffer, I know that, the people who are out of the shop, but with you on the bus right now are probably, feeling a lot of the same feelings as you,
Yeah,
excited, anxious, excited to
exactly.
get the results because you all put your
We've
lives
been
on the line for
on
this.
hold. We put
Yeah.
our lives on hold, the lives on the line, and you put so much effort and energy into every single moment of every day. So many 5 a.m. mornings and 11 p.m. drop offs. The days have been long, they've been intense. But we're all running on adrenaline at this point. I'm dreading Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the inevitable cold that will hit us all.
Yeah, it's hard to come down off of it, right? Because
Especially when you're on all day and there's different, media hits and interviews constantly. And you
yeah.
just got to focus. You just got to focus, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and you have been focused on trying to become Ontario's next premier.
Thank you. We're
Um,
doing pretty well. I'm really happy. I'm really pleased that our message is getting through because healthcare is so important. And so is providing the basics. And when you have your healthcare system that's underfunded and crumbling, and 2.5 million people don't have a family doctor, 11,000 people died waiting for care, for treatment, for surgery, 2,000 people getting treated in a hallway or in an auditorium, right? Our schools are crumbling and overcrowded. People can't afford to buy a home, let alone rent. Life is just not affordable anymore. We got to fix that before we're going to grow our economy and attract investment into the province.
well, and it's that the strong economy piece is so key, right? Because that's the backbone on which you are able to provide those very fundamental and important public services that people expect and deserve.
That's right. It's so vitally true, and diversify the sectors in which we're strong, diversify our trading partners. Like right now in Ontario, we have the highest unemployment rate in a decade, and jobs are leaving this province. And it's because people can't find housing, right? They don't have a family doctor. They can't afford their rent. It's critical right now that we change it so that we can provide the basics for people. Right now, the only people getting ahead are people, insiders of this government. They're doing lots for the lobbyists and the rich insiders, but nothing for the real people of Ontario. Even launched their platform yesterday, the highest spending platform. I've never seen so much money do, uh, so much spent to do so little, quite frankly.
Well, and so what have you been hearing from the voters over the last, 20-ish odd days? How has the message of really focusing your campaign on healthcare been?
Yeah, so really good. Let me say that it was a snap election call in the shortest and the coldest month. So we were climbing over, snowbanks to get to
Huge
Norway.
amounts of snow.
Huge amounts of snow and ice, and then it was the salt, and I think I've ruined so many pairs of shoes. But people
Well,
are really angry.
that is a
Yeah,
very Alberta problem, actually.
there
Yeah.
you go. And
Yeah.
I'm going to give kudos to a former premier of yours in a second, but let me just say that, first, people were really angry at why is there an election, particularly because this government has a majority government. He's asking for a supermajority. He already has one. He can pass any legislation he wants for the next year and a half. He's not due to go to the polls until June of 2026. You got to wonder why he's not at his desk right now, protecting us, protecting jobs from a trade war. The only jobs he's protecting is his own and his team. So that's a problem for people, and they don't understand why. And the theory is that he's trying to outrun an RCMP investigation. It was just a couple of weeks ago where there was another article written about some of his staff members that were allegedly lobbying on the side while being paid as staff of the premier. I mean, this is a horrible situation and a terrible conflict. But that's the hallmark of this government. All the scandals, whether it's the Greenbelt scandal, it's closing down the Science Center abruptly, it's the $2 billion that was given to a foreign-owned spa on public land. And by the way, that's more than they put into their healthcare plan. They put 1.4 billion into their healthcare plan, and they gave a foreign-owned spa $2 billion to prepare the site. Like it's unconscionable what they do. And then they spent $2 billion to speed up the sale of beer and wine to a corner store. I mean, listen, nobody's asking me to get a six-pack when you fill up your tank of gas. Nobody is. They're asking me if I know any doctors that are registering families. That's the real problem here in Ontario. But that's not what the government is focused on, not providing the basics for people. And when you have the government that's lost that focus, it's a morally bankrupt government. We have to
Has,
change this government.
has it been hard though? Because Trump,
Ford. Yeah,
it's like
I mixed them up too.
we all have
Trump,
Trump on the
Ford, Trump.
brain. Trump on the brain.
Well, and
How
he endorsed him, and Doug Ford endorsed Donald Trump. He said he was the guy he wanted to win. Can you imagine the guy about to wage a trade war on us to impose punitive tariffs? That's the guy our premier wanted to win the election.
well,
I don't
and
understand
I
it.
mean, Doug Ford's, messaging, I need a fresh mandate to take on Trump and,
No, he said a super
tariffs.
mandate, which
Super
he
mandate.
has already, which he already has.
I mean, is the economic piece of this resonating with more Ontarians because of the moment that we're in over the healthcare? Like, unfortunately, does healthcare and education fall behind the economic concerns?
Sarah, we need a premier that can do both, walk and chew gum at the same time. Like stand up to the trade threat, the tariff war, but also provide the basics. Like, why isn't he hard at work in his job? Running around back. He spent more time in Washington than he has here in this election, which breaks, of course, the caretaker protocol that's in place. You can't do that. You can't use government resources and fly off when you're in the middle of an election campaign. He couldn't even go to Ottawa during the last election, he said, because of the caretaker protocol. But now he's off in Washington. So, if he was serious about protecting our jobs, he would have done a lot more starting 7 years ago when he first got elected. Insulate our economy and drive investment here to make relationships with the governors, to diversify our trading partners, quite frankly. You know, I will say that one of your former premiers, Jason Kenney, really tried to knock down provincial barriers so all the provinces could freely trade with one another. And it was Doug Ford that was the impediment and said no. So, if he had the political will back then to do the right thing, we might not be in this position today. And the other thing I'll say is that he put all our investment in the EV basket. And here we see Stellantis now perhaps not or closing down their plant in Brampton and laying off 2,200 people. That's really concerning. Why didn't he diversify the sectors and the growth? I mean, that's when I was a mayor, obviously, of a big city, and that's what I did. I had four strong pillars, so we were always insulated in case one was down. And then, of course, buy Ontario, protect Ontario. Like the steel industry, we need to stand up for Hamilton and the Hamilton steelworkers. Like he's done none of that to prepare us. Now he's waving the flag and pretending he's Captain Canada, but he has a very small role in this. This is the federal government that is actively negotiating with the powers that be while he's flown down there for photo ops with junior level advisors.
I mean, all of that is, I mean, I could argue with it, but a lot of it is just the way things have kind of played out, right? The timing of all of this, and obviously being a snap election, the PCs have played this to their strength. They've, it's to their advantage to do it, and they're going ahead with it. We'll have to see how it plays out. But I did see that one of the federal Liberal leadership candidates has tweeted, Mark Carney. Is that a formal endorsement of your bid,
Well,
or how would you describe
there
it?
Yeah. So we came out and supported Mark as well. I mean, our teams are very closely aligned. And of course, when I was in my leadership race, he came out and did some fun. He provided me some financial support. He did a fundraiser for me. And I've been watching the race pretty closely. And I think we're aligned. I think he's the right person at this critical time that gives us that gravitas that can stand up to Donald Trump and understands trade wars and tariffs. So he's the right guy. But I also know he's going to provide for the basics for people and never lose sight of the two tracks. And that's my criticism of Doug Ford, that he's lost sight of the basics. And people don't have family doctors. There are long wait times in our hospitals, right? We're not building homes at all, let alone affordable homes. Our schools are crumbling and people can't afford their lives. They can't afford to pay their rent, buy groceries, and pay their cell phone bill in the same month. So we've told them that we're going to cut their taxes, that we're going to take the HST off home heating and hydro, and that will put $1,150 back in their pocket. So I hope that's a big incentive for them, that and the fact that my number one commitment is to get them a family doctor. And of course, that will reduce the wait times in our hospitals for those needing urgent and critical care.
I mean, I firmly believe that every Canadian should have a family doctor. But how do we, with the healthcare being under such stress, under such, in my opinion, a lack of funding, I think there's a difference between having a family doctor in kind of like name, right? And actually being able to get in to see them. So
Right.
what do
So
you for that mom in Mississauga, or that grandma in Hamilton, or
right.
for
So
that family in Sault
the,
Ste.
the
Marie?
reality is
How do they get in?
the reality is it's a question of priorities. It's not that there isn't money. It's being deliberately underfunded because his agenda is to privatize our healthcare. He wants his buddies to open up private clinics. The money exists. He just wasted $7 billion. I can give you at the top of my head the $2 billion that he used to expedite the sale of beer and wine because it was going to happen in 1 year anyways. Right, the $2 billion he gave to the foreign-owned spa at Ontario Place, $3 billion in pre-election checks. There's $7 billion right there. Why wouldn't that have gone? Not to mention the $189 million that he wasted to call an early election. Why wouldn't that money have gone into our healthcare system? The money exists, Sarah. It's just not being used for the right priorities. This
Mm.
government's priorities are their rich insiders and lobbyists and friends. Because this is all about the big box stores, the chain stores, the 7-Elevens, the Walmarts, the Staples. Like, why did he close the Science Center? Why did he shut down Service Ontario locations and put them into Staples, into Walmart? Why? They're less accessible right now for people. Why would he give $2 billion to a foreign owned spa? That's more money than he's putting into his healthcare plan. He's spending like a drunken sailor. So don't tell me there's not enough money for healthcare. It's just not going to healthcare.
Mm. Okay, that's a very important distinction. So, in
Mhm.
your last kind of couple of days pitch to Ontario voters, I heard during your the second debate that you made a pitch to voters, NDP voters even, to come on
Yeah.
side, join your kind of voting coalition. as a way to, be competitive with Ford. How has that pitch been received by people, and is it successful?
Yeah, well, we'll find out on the 27th for sure. But we're asking everyone to loan us their vote. We are that party that really has wind in our sails. I can feel the momentum. I see it at the doors. The poll numbers, have really increased. We are leapfrogging ahead. And I'm asking for everyone, if you believe in our agenda to provide the basics, to ensure that everyone has a family doctor in 4 years, to ensure that we can reduce wait times in hospitals, that we make life more affordable for you, and that we build homes that are more affordable. Please, if those are your priorities, then we need to change the government, because it's not this government's priorities. And the only way to be successful is to vote for the Ontario Liberals. So, yes, I'm asking to loan your vote. Perhaps you voted for another party last time. I need your vote this time. If you want to be sure you're going to have a family doctor, lower wait times in hospitals, homes that are affordable, and a more affordable quality of life and standard of living, you got to vote Ontario Liberal on February 27th.
Well, and what's your pitch? What do you say that Doug Ford will deliver if he is reelected for another 4 years? What would the
Look,
contra-
more scandals, more gimmicks, more giveaways, right? More gimmicks to their wealthy friends and insiders. That's what this is the hallmark of this government. They carved up the green belt, protected land, and give the heads up allegedly to their wealthy donors who are all these rich developers. And all of a sudden, our protected land is being carved up. That's what this government does. They tell us they're going to do it, then they do it, then we're surprised, then we force them to walk it back. Then he walks it back and apologizes. We knew he was going to do that. Is that the kind of government you want? Or do you want a thoughtful government that does their due diligence, who will deliver on their promises to provide the basics for you, which is a family doctor and lower wait times, more affordable cost of living, and affordable housing?
Well, I mean, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens. I think it's always interesting to think about maybe the people you've met along the way. Have there been any stories from people in particular that have really resonated and that you're still thinking about?
So many people, the PSWs who aren't paid equitably. If you work in a long-term care home or in a hospital or out in the community, they're the first ones to speak up, same as the nurses. I have a candidate who signed on because he hasn't had a family doctor in 7 years. And finally, the walk-in clinic signed him up as their patient. And then I look at the people in Walkerton, Ontario, 1,000 of them signed up or stood in line in a snowstorm for 6 hours to register for the one family doctor that was coming into town that would take 500 of them. And they took another 500 names because when his wife gets approval, she's going to move to town and perhaps take the other 500. That is the state of Ontario today. Moms who at the checkout lineup hold their breath to put the meat back in the freezer at the grocery store because they can't afford it this month. People who 2.5 million of them who don't have a family doc, and the 11,000 people who died waiting for care. Not 13,000 people who died from an opioid overdose. We're the only party promising to include healthcare in OHIP coverage because it's so personal for me. I don't know if you've heard the story that my dad was an alcoholic and he had serious addiction issues and spent his life in a men's shelter and died in the Seton House. So for me, this is critically important that we get those kinds of people into supportive housing with the wraparound care and services that they need. So those are the kind of stories I've been hearing across this province that really matter to people. But we need everyone to come together to vote Ontario Liberal, and then we can vote out this government.
Well, and I believe that you also made an announcement on mental health,
Yeah,
which I think is really that
vitally important. This isn't a luxury. It's not a frill. It's impacting our economy in a big way. The time that people are off because of mental health issues, our young people are being affected. Our anxiety rates are off the charts, eating disorders, mental health issues, frankly, opioid use, suicide rates. We we can't just hope it goes away. We need to do something about it. And they need to get the care and the treatment they need. So we have made a commitment to include that. We've just said, look, mental health is health. Let's be
Mhm.
sure it's covered in our Medicare, in our OHIP system.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's actually, of the many kind of, we're facing a healthcare crisis in Canada. We're facing an addictions crisis, but we're also, I think, facing a mental health crisis.
Yep.
And it definitely doesn't get the attention that it needs. And so I personally completely applaud you for taking that on. And I really hope that it's something that we see in other provincial leadership races.
Hope so too.
Even at the federal level, especially coming out of COVID, the unaddressed, mental health crisis I think in our kids, not
It's so
only
true. That's what
societally,
I'm seeing. With the
right?
level of anxiety rates among kids, it's almost paralyzing them. The eating disorders, just the general mental health issues, and then the reliance on substances like
Yeah.
opioids
I think that,
and the
and this is
high
one of
rate of
the,
suicide.
if we front
We have to
load,
act.
right? If we front load these issues become before they become issues, instead of always just being reactive. I think governments tend to always be reactive, but a proactive approach to mental health would, I think, have a trickle down effect not only on improving the lives of Ontarians immediately, but you would probably see reduced costs in other areas because people would be better off. They would be
Uh,
happier,
it's
would
critical, and
be
it's
more
critical to our
productive.
economy as well, right?
Yeah,
The productivity rates are
100%.
suffering,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's our commitment.
Yeah, no, I think I really applaud you for doing that. But so if people want to actually, if they're still undecided, which that could very well be,
Sure, there's
um,
still a big block of undecided.
yep. How do people find out more about your campaign? But also, um, like what's your message to them? What's your last message to anyone who's undecided? Or even more dangerously, like don't let this be just an election, yet another election decided by people who don't vote, right?
That's right. Apathy is the thing that's going to kill us. So if you want more information, it's at ontarioliberal.ca, and it'll have all the information you need right there. But the reality is we need to change the government to change all of this, which we have discussed. We are the party that has the wind in our sails and the momentum. So if you want to change the government, you're going to have to vote Ontario Liberal on February 27th, which is 2 days away.
And for anyone who's like, what do you say when someone says to you, like, oh, my vote doesn't matter, or it doesn't matter if I show up?
Of course it matters.
Yeah.
It's cumulative effect. You and then bring your mom and your dad and your neighbor and your cousin. You spread the message, and suddenly there's critical mass, and it makes an impact.
Well, also, right? My question back to people who say that is, like, what is
Don't
it about
complain
this?
later.
Well, yes, voting is definitely more effective than complaining in person or on the internet. But also, like, it's your hard-earned tax dollars.
That's
How do
right.
you want them to be spent?
That's right. And look, that $200 check is your money that came back to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure it felt good. It topped up your groceries one month, maybe helped you pay your rent or paid your cell phone bill. What about next month? I ask you. And if you knew that money cost $3 billion, would you not that rather have gone into your healthcare system to improve your access to a family doc and lower wait times at hospitals? Because I'm sure the answer to that is yes.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of chatter online asking around people who have not received their voter cards.
Yeah, that's easy. You just bring your ID into the voting locations or go to Elections Ontario. And you need to obviously provide proof of your residence as well. Just bring some ID that will show your residence, and you'll be able to vote with or without a voter card.
Okay, that's really important because I've seen some people saying, like, I haven't received my voter card.
Yeah,
I
my
don't
daughter just got
know.
hers yesterday.
Yeah. So obviously the snowstorm and then everything, a snap election, but you
Yeah,
can vote without your voter
absolutely.
ID card. Yeah, that's so good.
Exactly. Yes, you
Um,
can.
what has been, before I let you continue on your very bumpy bus ride, what has been one of
I'm going to miss it.
what's been a favorite moment from the campaign, Bonnie?
Gosh, there have been so many. It's the bonding of all of us here on the bus and the team. There have been so many moments. Oh gosh, the fact that we all started enjoying the same kind of music and the same kind of food, and we're all there to support each other. It's just been so heartwarming. It's truly a bonding experience on this bumpy bus.
Yeah. It has been really bumpy at times.
we Sometimes we say we feel like flight attendants experiencing extreme turbulence.
Well, yeah, because it's obviously very bumpy and yeah, you're just, along for the ride. But
But
uh,
it's been fun. We've got great team here on the bus, great team back in the headquarters, and
yeah,
right around the province with all of our candidates, our MPPs, and their teams. It's just huge
yeah,
effort we've put into this in such a short period of time because, there was no need to have this an election. It's an unnecessary election. It's an expensive election. They had a year and a half in their mandate. So yeah, we all scrambled a little bit to get everything in place, but it's in place. Where we're running like clockwork right now. We've got
yeah.
a great team. I've got the best people, and we're really resonating. We're breaking through the clutter. We absolutely are. But I do need people together. The votes do exist to topple this government if we come together. So I'm asking for your vote. Perhaps you voted for another party last time. You want to defeat this government. Oops. Oh, help me. Help me.
No, you're good.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Because a phone call came in and suddenly everything went dark.
Oh,
So if you want to topple the government, then you've got to vote for Ontario Liberals.
yeah. Well, thanks, Bonnie, for taking some time out of your very busy campaign day. I think all of Canada is going to be watching the results on election day.
Yeah.
And yeah, if there's anyone who is listening to this that is undecided, please do not just stay at home. Like, just take some time, do your research, make your decision, show up. It's
Yes.
so, so important. Do not just stay at home.
Your life could depend on it, quite frankly. It'll be the difference between having a family doctor and not.
Yeah. So thanks, Bonnie, and good
Thanks
luck.
very much for having me, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great day.
thanks.
Bye bye.